Today, I want to answer a very simple question. If your goal is to build long-term wealth, not by trading, not by investing in whatever is the hype today, what should you actually own? The goal of this video is not to crown a winner for next month or the year afterwards, but it is to understand what type of economic exposure each fund gives you. And I would like to start with the S&P 500. If you own this, you're betting on economic growth, productivity, and profits over multiple decades. And historically, it has compounded really well and steadily. So it doesn't grow the fastest, nor does it drop the fastest. But it survives wars, recessions, crises, and you name it. So for most people, this alone works. But it is also very diversified. And I know this sounded like a negative connotation, but in my opinion, it is. So this means being diversified means that it will never be aggressively exposed to the fastest growing tech. You can think about it as S&P 500 is stability first and growth is the second. So for the next one, I want to look at Nasdaq. Okay, very interesting feature on my laptop then, so cool. Wow. Okay, text to speech. Well, speech to text rather. But yeah, let's look at Nasdaq. So this is QQQ Nasdaq 100. This has only 100 companies, not the 500 as the S&P does rather. And this one concentrates on large tech and growth companies. So it will obviously include Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and all that good stuff. It also holds consumer companies such as Costco or Walmart. Now, we can see obviously that compared against the S&P, which is lovely, it grows faster. But we can see it has even bigger drawdowns. And we can see that through the drawdown. Look, when the S&P, which is purple, when it drops by here 25%, the Nasdaq dropped by 35%. So that is a massive divergence. But when tech phases, so when the S&P drops, obviously, we can see that Nasdaq drops even more. So that's a reason why it also goes up more, because volatility is not something that we should be afraid of, especially if you add funds every month or quarterly basis and so on. So the reason that the Nasdaq works long term is very simple. Technology increases productivity, which in turn drives profits, which gives us a win-win situation. So you would have had over 1,000%, well, 1,200% from 2010 versus the 500% in the S&P 500. But, and the big hairy but is here, the QQQs, it's mostly software companies, platforms, and consumer tech, which is great. But here is where, oh no. I should have done this beforehand. Nevertheless, this is where the SMH becomes interesting. This is a semiconductor ETF. So this is not applications, platforms, or any sorts of brands. These are the physical foundations of the digital world. So every AI model, cloud service, electric vehicle, mobile devices, anything, anything. It runs on chips. So I like to think about it as no chips means no progress. It's that easy. So SMH owns the entire ecosystem. The fund has NVIDIA, AMD, which are designers of chips, but then you also have Intel and TSMC, and these actually manufacture the chips. We also have equipment companies like the beloved ASML and many others. We've got the DRAM companies, SK Hynix, and all that. So let me be clear first, because it looks very nice when you see 2000% gain, but the truth is SMH is very volatile. So when the market crashes, let's come and see this. When the market crashes, it crashes faster than anything else out there. So faster than the S&P and QQQ. So this is not something you want to buy and when it's down you sell at a loss. No. The trade-off is that when demand for compute comes back, this index, a fund rather, it recovers faster because nothing can replace them. Where is the example where S&P went down by 15 or 25%? I forgot where it was exactly, but we can see something here. Here we had the S&P down 21%, Nasdaq down 31%, SMH was down 40%. So we have, look at the green. The green is the SMH. On average, it has 44% drawdowns, which is, let's be honest, it's not for the people that have fragile hearts. And let's get back to the change. So we saw that it's volatile. We understood the trade-off, and what you win in return. And we mentioned that it recovers faster because nothing can replace them. And I want to give an example, or two rather. So Google can design their own chips, and they do. Amazon and everybody in the world design their own chips as well. But in the end, only Taiwan Semiconductor can build them. And another example is that NVIDIA currently they design the best GPUs, and TSMC build them. But once they are built, all the hyperscalers buy them. So you will have Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Meta buy them. And they have to compete against each other. They have to rent them out to customers. So they are fighting against each other on who can get the highest profit margin, which is going to be lower because of the competition. Semis, the semiconductor industry, is more monopolistic. So the winner will take most. We have an example of NVIDIA holding around 90% share of the market. Yes, we have AMD as well, and we have Broadcom that make the custom chips, but NVIDIA has 90%. So this is a very interesting market. So this is not about predicting next year, as I mentioned. It's about long-term wealth. And in my opinion, you do that when you own the bottlenecks and the things that the world cannot function without. So in my view, semis are that bottleneck. AI, automation, the defense industry, healthcare, energy, everything is built on chips. So they all converge here. And I want to close this out now. In summation, markets don't care about politics. They care about productivity. So productivity today runs on compute, and compute runs on semiconductors. So you do not need to predict the future. You need to own what the future cannot function without. This is why I love SMH, and there are other ETFs that follow the semiconductor space. So for long-term wealth building, it's brilliant. And you should like it too. When you have spent some time understanding what the companies do, how they do it, and why we cannot live without them, you should believe in that as well. Unless you believe that we will become cavemen again. In my view, the next decade, 2 or 3, we will need more chips. And of course, Nvidia or AMD, their GPUs might be obsolete because quantum could come, for example, but they will be in the ETF. Chips, doesn't matter what type they will be needed, whether quantum chips or general purpose computing. It doesn't matter. Thank you, take care, and keep safe.